Hi everyone, Ryan Mentz here, and in this video I'm going to be talking about this lens. It's the Sony FE 200-600mm f5.6 6.3 G OSS lens, and it's a terrific lens. I've been using it for almost a year now, and I recently published my long-term review on it to fstoppers.com, which I'll leave a link to in the description below. In this video I'm going to be talking about the lens settings, the switches on the side, and my thought process behind when I decided to change those. Talk a little bit about the accessories, but I have a different video that goes into that more in depth. And I'm going to talk about some camera settings that I use in conjunction with using the lens to make it a little bit nicer. So let's get started. First up is the autofocus manual focus switch on top here, and I use manual focus a ton for bird photography. The problem with this lens is that it does not have a full-time manual focus override, so if I'm in autofocus and I need to make little adjustments, I can't just start turning the focus ring and expect anything to happen. I need to actually change over to a manual focus mode, make my adjustments, and go back to autofocus if that's what I want to do. I don't like using this switch. It's not really in a helpful place, so like when I'm shooting, I'm ready to shoot and I got something I need, and oh no, I need to change the manual focus quick. I need to take this hand and move it way up here, flick the switch, go back. Instead, I have a custom button on my camera that will switch over to manual focus once I'm holding it in. And when I let go, it goes back to autofocus. So that's kind of the next best thing. I'll show you how I set that up. For me personally, I have this set up to the AEL button on the back. And for the Sony A9, you go into the menu, you go into the purple camera 2 tab, and page 9 of 11 is the custom key option for photos. And it's going to be on the first page, number 2, it's the AEL button. And I set that to AF MF control hold. And like I said, what that does is when you hold the button down, it will switch over to manual focus, and when you let go, it'll go back to your autofocus settings. Alright, so with that, I keep autofocus, manual focus switch always on autofocus, and then I just use the back button. Next up is the focus range limiter, and you got 3 options. You got full, you got 10 meters to 2.4 meters, and then you got 10 meters to infinity. For this one, most of the time I'm going to leave it at full. And the only time I will change it is the 10 meters to 2.4 meters. So when things are close up, especially like songbirds, I find this to be pretty reliable because I usually don't want to go outside that range if I want to get a nice closer image with a lot more feather detail in it. The thing is, I don't ever like using the 10 meters to the infinity. I find with this one that the camera will always focus on the furthest thing, which is never really ideal for what I'm trying to do. So like birds in flight, if I'm photographing, and this happens to me every time I try it with the setting, if I'm doing like northern harriers in a field and there's like trees in the background, it will not pick up that bird, even though it's a white bird, the males are. It's a white bird in front of yellows and greens and just lush color, and you got this white object moving through. The camera just completely ignores it for some reason. It always goes to the furthest trees in the background and focuses on those. It's super annoying, so I never ever trust having the lens in the 10 meter to infinity range, so I basically only use the first two, and much heavier, always just kind of leave it on full. So the next switch is going to be the optical steady shot on and off, and along with that I'm also going to talk about the mode, because that has to deal with the steady shot and how that kind of acts, and that's mode 1, 2, and 3. So mode 1 means that your steady shot is working both vertically and horizontally, so it's really compensating for all types of movement. Mode 2 means it's the panning mode basically, so it's not going to compensate for the side to side movement, but it is going to compensate for the up and down movement. And mode 3 is like mode 2 in that it shares the same kind of principal idea, where it's not going to be compensating for the side to side, but it will for up and down. The difference being that mode 3, it does not show the compensation before you take the picture. So in your viewfinder, you'll notice that there's all that shake still going on, even though you're in a stabilized mode. But when you take the picture, it will jam up that steady shot, and you'll get the effect that you're looking for. For this one, I basically only touch one of these two switches. I only use the top one, the optical steady shot on and off. And the reason for that is basically I kind of have one of two frames of mind. I'm either shooting a still subject like a perched bird or something where I'm using the full compensation. And other than that, I'm shooting a bird in flight probably, which is a high shutter speed, and you don't really need any kind of compensation for that. So instead of having to deal with two switches, I kind of narrow it down to one switch I'm dealing with. So I leave it at mode 1 for the full compensation. And when I have a perched bird, I have the steady shot on, and if I'm shooting a bird in flight, I turn it off. So it kind of simplifies things for me. The only time that kind of changes is when I'm shooting a longer exposure for a bird in flight, when I'm trying to get kind of an artistic effect for that. Then I'll switch it to mode 2 for that panning mode, and I'll have it on, obviously, the steady shot. So as you probably know, this lens also has 3 focus hold buttons on it. There's one on top, side, and bottom. And I'll tell you, I'm not saying this is how you should set it up, but this is kind of me, and I have it set to nothing. So in the custom settings, I have it, the focus hold button set to not set. And the reason for that is because they're in a placement where I will accidentally trigger them all the time while shooting. Because like I said, I'm using manual focus a lot, so my normal resting position with this lens is right about here. And what that causes is if I have it set to like some kind of focus hold, my autofocus stops working and I'm confused as to why. I get mad and then I throw my camera in the trash. But like I said, you can set it up to however you want. You might actually prefer the placement of these because they are exactly where your hand's resting. So if you're a little more thoughtful than I am to like always understanding that there's buttons here that you can use to your advantage instead of me who just finds them to be in the way, they're actually probably great for you. But I set them to not set just so I'm not confusing myself why my camera's not working how I expect it to. Alright, now that we talked about the 4 switches and the focus hold buttons, briefly talk about the accessories. Like I said, I have a different video that talks about these already, but the LensCoat, the benefit to the LensCoat for me is that I overlap these 2 pieces of neoprene fabric here, and what that causes is the zoom to lock up essentially, unless I really don't want it to be at 600mm, which, man, I can't even remember the last time that I didn't want it to be at 600mm, so usually 600mm isn't enough for me, if anything. So I have these overlaps, and that kind of locks it up because this lens lacks any type of locking mechanism for the zoom ring. So that kind of helps, and if I really want to, I'll just yank on this and it'll go wherever I need it. The next accessory I'll talk about is the replacement tripod foot. And the problem with the one that it comes with is that there are no dovetail grooves for a Arca style plate. So you can either add your own plate to the bottom of this, it makes it kind of cumbersome and more weighty, or you can buy a replacement foot, and this one's from Kirk Industries. And this does have the grooves on it for a gimbal or a ball head or whatever you're mounting to. And it has the same kind of locking mechanism, the quick release, as the original foot, so it just goes on like that as you're used to, and now you have a way to attach your lens straight to the tripod. And then last up is the BlackRapid strap. And what's nice about this is you already got a very nice hand-holdable lens for shooting, but when you want to carry it around in the field, it is nice to have a strap so you're just not lugging it by the handle all the time. And it's very easy to attach. It's got this anchor point that screws in. You can also screw in onto the tripod feet if you prefer. And then it just kind of loops through. This is a safety harness for it. I recommend using it. I didn't show it in the first video. So you loop it through there first, and then you loop it through the anchor point. You tighten it down. Then lock this piece in place and you're good to go. Alright, so that's how I set up my Sony 200-600mm lens for bird photography. Hopefully this helped you out. If I didn't answer your question, go ahead and leave a comment below. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.